We have been working for the past 2 years, engaging the community to try to think about its future and what they want Natick to look like, and then start putting together a plan to see how we're going to get there. That was done through a whole bunch of public forums, community-wide survey, meetings over a course of 2 years. And we got a lot of really good input, which culminated in a set of value and vision statements and a set of strategic goals that were defined by the leadership boards of the community. And it's a really remarkable piece of work because what it allows us to do is to say, the people of Natick have spoken. They've said, this is what we really love about our community and we want to preserve. These are things that we'd like to develop over time. And here are a set of goals that we can all agree to that we'll work on over the next 5 years to try to get there.
We set out from the beginning to engage the political leadership and the administrative leadership in the town in the whole Natick 360 process, that we have come to a conclusion that also incorporates them and includes them. So we don't have a set of ideas and suggestions that are just citizen generated but don't necessarily have the support and the potential to be implemented that comes from the engagement on the part of the political process, the various boards and committees, and the administrative function of the town. From my perspective, what it exposed was a level of commitment to the town across a variety of opinions. And I think what often gets missed in some of these, more volatile discussions and so on, is that there is in fact this underlying consensus about the value of the town and the value of living in it. And that I think one of the things that this process, I hope, has brought forward for people is that there is a set of values and visions and so on that people to a large extent agree on. Now, it doesn't talk about the Redmond name or anything like that, but it talks about the health of the community, it talks about serving all the people and so on, and it talks about the commitment and pride that people already have in this community. And that it's important to keep that as a touchstone, to keep going back and referencing that, because that's what you build from and build upon. And there will always be debates from different points of view about issues of importance to the town, and they'll be divisive to a certain extent. But as long as people, and that's why I think going through this first stage of this exercise was so important, is an opportunity to flesh out what those values are that people really feel they have in common, whether they arrived last month or whether their family, got off on the Mayflower and ran out here.
We did these small group breakouts, people sat around. And there was one group where there was a grandmother who lived in the town her whole life, and she had grandchildren and everything, and she'd been Natick forever. And a relatively young couple who had moved to town in the same group. And they all were talking about many of the same things. The young couple who had moved to town could have gone and moved into Wellesley, but perceived, perception in many times is reality, right? They perceived that Wellesley was a kind of town where it was more homogenous and, more wealthy and more, and whereas Natick was not. Natick was a little bit more mixed up and, multi-generational, multi-income levels, and they liked that. Both the young couple and the grandmother were concerned about the quality of the schools. The young couple were locating here because they wanted to raise their children in a place with a good school system, and the grandmother had grandchildren in the school system, and they cared about those kinds of things. This is a program that's existed for quite some time. It's a Massachusetts state law that allows a senior to do work for the town and essentially earn a credit against their local property tax. And Natick had been participating in this program for years. I think they allowed as many as 30 or 35 seniors to work for as a maximum of $750. It might be a higher number now since the minimum wage has gone up. And that credit was applied directly to that person's tax bill. What's terribly inefficient about that program, though, is that the people who need those credits the most can't do the work. right? I mean, the regulation said that the work needed to be done, but you may have somebody who's housebound or just not at a point in their life because they're elderly or infirm that they can do the volunteer work at town hall or at the senior center or wherever they're going to do it. And so in a brainstorming session with Moira Munz, who's the Human Services Director, we came up with this idea of why not use a surrogate? Why not create an opportunity for someone else in the community to do the work and have that work credited toward a senior who is in need of those kind of services? And that had never been considered before. And so Moira did a whole bunch of, heavy lifting. She did a lot of research, asked questions of the state to make sure it was in compliance, it wasn't somehow in violation of the law. And everyone said, no, it sounds like a great idea, why don't you do it? And so Natick is now really the first community in the Commonwealth, as far as we know, that set up a surrogate program, a tax credit surrogate program, where someone else, like a high school senior who's working on communities, who has a community service requirement anyway, can do some work and then have those hours as credited for a senior in the community who needs the tax. So I think that, again, looking at this holistically and looking at having documented the total needs of the community, I think those two things are really innovations. I don't think you get those kinds of innovations coming out of thinking in a silo kind of narrow way. I think those things come out of looking holistically through a planning document at the entire community.
This summary document has in fact been mailed to all the households in Natick at this point.
Okay.
So
Every household has received this.
yeah, so there's no mystery in terms of what it is that was done and what's been proposed, and anyone can go to the town's website and find exhaustive material in terms of where this came from, how it was done, what the results were, what the people involved in the process would think about doing it the next time. It's all there. So.